Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I am going through every guitar in my collection. This is a super nerdy video for you guys who just want to know more about each guitar that I own and play in my Beatles covers. It's been a while since I've shown my face. I actually did one of these back in 2022, about 2 years ago, and I've acquired some new guitars since then. The studio tour I did before was also for amps and pedals and everything in my studio. So today it's just really about each guitar, the mods that I've done to them, and some stories behind them. So I'm going to go in chronological order, starting with the first guitars that I've owned to the most recent ones that I've bought. So, like most of you, I started on really cheap, like classical acoustic guitar. I don't know what the brand was. I don't think I have it anymore. But the first real guitar that I owned was a 2005 Martin 000X1 acoustic guitar from 2005. Maybe it was 2004. I bought it new at Guitar Center, and I still have it. It's in my childhood home in Pennsylvania. It has a crack on the body. It's, not in great shape right now because I haven't played in a while, but it's still a really good guitar. It's a Martin, so it's good quality, even though it's a cheaper Martin. Then in 2005, I bought the first electric guitar that I still own. It's a 2005 Gibson Les Paul Standard, and I was lucky to have this one as the first electric to own. It's, not everyone's first electric is a real Gibson. And I bought it new at Richborough Music in Pennsylvania. I think it's now called Coils. And at the time I was listening to a lot of classic rock, Angus Young, Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin. So I was thinking about getting an SG because of Angus Young. So when I got to the shop, I had a choice of an SG or a Les Paul. I was very close to buying an SG, but I was getting more and more into Jimmy Page and Led Zeppelin, and he used a burst Les Paul. So I picked this one up, and it just felt right. It felt like the low end was a little bit better than the SG. I don't know, the neck was really nice. It has a 50s neck. And went up to the counter. It did not have a pickguard at the time, and they asked if I wanted to put a pickguard on, so I said yes. And it looks pretty much the same as it would have, except for a few mods. So I first replaced the switch tip on this. It would have come in white, and I wanted an amber switch tip like the vintage accurate 50s ones. Another story that happened was, this is a heavy guitar. It's 9 or 10 pounds, and I would play it in my bedroom, and I had a strap on, and I would, be playing kind of like a teenager does, like crazy. And I dropped the guitar. The strap fell off. It was loose, and it fell to the floor, and the input jack, the cable went through the input jack and broke through. So I needed to replace this whole thing. It came with a metal looking like nickel, input jack cover. So I put the cream Gibson reissue one on it, so that's different. Then I also put, let me switch this around, knob pointers, which point to the number on the knob, which is accurate to the 50s ones. I don't know if you can see that there, those little pointers. So that was another mod. Then the only other thing that I modded was the pickups in about 2019. So it came with Burstbucker Pros, which are Gibson humbuckers. And those were great. They were wax potted. They were really hot pickups. But I put in these OX4 British low wind PAF pickups in 2019. And they are more vintage accurate. They're not wax potted, so they squeal a bit. And they just sound really clear and bright. And yeah, this guitar has been with me through everything. It's, feels like home. Just give you some more shots of it. It's a little heavy. I'm kind of out of breath just, talking with it, although I'm kind of used to the weight at this point. But yeah, it's just a really solid Gibson Les Paul. So the next guitar I bought was 2 years later in 2007. I got this Telly at D-Town Guitars in Pennsylvania. This is a Fender American Vintage Hot Rod 52 Telly that I bought new. So the Hot Rod part of it is interesting. It's not like a normal American vintage reissue. This came with a mini humbucker in the neck, a Seymour Duncan mini humbucker. So if you took the pickguard off, you would see a little cavity routed because I replaced the pickups in this. The other thing about this that differs from a normal 52 reissue Telly is the back of the neck is satin and it's a 9.5 radius. So it's a little different profile neck, but I love it. And it has compensated bridge saddles. So yeah, I replaced the pickups in this. I first replaced this neck pickup in about 2009, I'd say. This is a Nocaster 51 Fender custom shop pickup. And the bridge pickup in this that came with it was very hot to match the humbucker neck. So when I put the neck pickup in here, it didn't really match the volume of the bridge pickup. So I put the other equivalent 51 Nocaster bridge pickup in there. So now they're a matching set. The only other mods I've done to this are the switch tip is a top hat as opposed to the round knob like the 50s one. And that was mostly because my Telly heroes are Bruce Springsteen and George Harrison, who both used, different Tellys, but they both had the top hat toggles. So this is probably my favorite guitar, actually. I love Telecasters. It's light, it's beautiful sounding. I love the satin back of the neck. Just show you some more. It's just really perfect to me. Everything I want to do, I can do on this guitar, and never, I'm gonna sell it. It's just home. So in about 2011, I got my first vintage guitar. This is a 1969 Martin 0018. Got it on eBay, actually, for a good price, at least a good price for what it would cost now. It's very light. It's mostly original condition. It's got a new pickguard on it because the first one kind of bubbled and warped. You can see it's a little, used. I've strummed it really hard, which you're not really supposed to do with the smaller body acoustic guitars. The only other mods that I've done to it are adding a pickup inside. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but it's got a LR Baggs bridge transducer in there. Sounds really good. So it has a little volume knob wheel in there. It's just a beautiful, beautiful guitar. Very light. Plays great. And yeah, it's a Martin. It's a vintage Martin. It's so good. And it has kind of a V-neck, actually. An interesting shaped neck. Great for finger picking. As I said, I kind of used it for more hard strumming because it was my only acoustic guitar and I didn't really know better. But now I have dreadnoughts, and so this is more for specific styles. And it just feels really great. It's got a lot of mid-range to it as opposed to the dreadnoughts that are a little scoopier sounding. So you can see that input jack instead of a strap button that was modded too. It's kind of funny. I'm picking up this little lap steel and it weighs almost the same as that Martin I was just holding. So this is a real 1959 Fender Champ lap steel. And I got this at Matt Umanov Guitars in about 2017. Not really modded at all. I think I had to replace some of the pots on the knobs here. What's really interesting about this is, first of all, the back kind of golf-looking turf cover on the back. And as I was saying, the pickup in this is really interesting. So Keith Richards famously used a Telecaster with a Fender Lap Steel pickup in it. He removed this and put it in his Telecaster bridge pickup. I think that was an earlier 50s though, because this one is a 59, and I looked it up and I measured the output of this, and it's not the same as a Telecaster pickup that, you know, would have come with an earlier 1950s lap steel. It's actually more like a Duosonic or Music Master, cheaper Fender from the 50s, which is still really cool. It's very bright though. I usually have to roll the tone knob down about halfway, unless I want something really piercing, which is interesting. It's really low output. It's like kind of the output of like a Strat, but it doesn't sound like a Strat. My favorite part of it is this Fender logo though. It just looks really worn in and super cool. So yeah, I learned how to play lap steel. I use Open G, Open D. Definitely going to do For You Blue at some point with this. And yeah, it's kind of taught me how to play slide in a real way. So in 2018, I had a really big year for my guitar collection. My wife and I, then fiance, we went to Nashville, and it was just a normal trip, although we knew that we wanted to look for some vintage Gibson acoustic guitars. We tried a lot out, some 1930s, early models, some Everly Brothers, different things, but we ended up at Carter's Guitars. We got this. It's a 1956 Gibson J-45, all original, except for the tuners really are the main mod. These are vintage Kluson tuners, whereas the original J-45 would have had white button plastic tuners. So these actually have the same tuners as like a J-160 or like a Les Paul. It's really worn in, as you can probably tell, and it plays amazingly. Has a really chunky neck, and in 1956 they actually moved to adjustable bridge, an adjustable bridge saddle, and this one does not have that. It's pre-adjustable, which people say is a better tone anyway without it. I've actually played one with a real 1956 with the adjustable, and it was a little less worn in than this, and it did sound pretty different. I think a lot of that has to do with the lack of gloss on this, because it's been so worn in. It's almost more like it's been stripped of its finish in a few ways. It's so worn in. It plays so great. It's probably the best acoustic I've ever played. It probably has some cracks on it that I don't even know about. There could be things happening that need work, but it sounds so good. I don't even really feel the need to mess with it. And it's just so nice. And coming from the Martin, which the 0018, which was small, I kind of understood what dreadnoughts were about when I got this thing, because it's big sounding. Buddy Holly played one, Bruce Springsteen played one. They're just a really classic guitar. The Epiphone Texan is kind of based on this guitar. So not much else to say. It's just really great. So on our Nashville trip, that wasn't the only guitar we picked up. When I went to Gruhn's Guitars in Nashville, I also picked up this 1967 Gibson B-25-12 12-string guitar. And it was a really good price, and it had some things wrong with it, which I didn't really understand at the time. And later on, I had to kind of put a lot of effort into making this right. And shout out to Doug Proper, my guitar tech, who did an incredible job on this. So this is actually an interesting guitar in a lot of ways. It was previously owned by Tommy Shaw of the band Styx, and he most likely was the one who did some of the mods to this, including a refin. So the B-25-12s and most of the Gibsons at this time had the cherry sunburst or a natural finish. I don't know exactly what this guitar would have had originally, but it's very likely it had a different sunburst finish on it already, and whoever did the refin on this did a really great job, because it's a beautiful red cherry sunburst. And he also, I'm saying he like Tommy, but probably his tech, I imagine, put a pickup in here as well. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but it's like a microphone inside. It's a passive pickup. This guitar sounds incredible, though. It's got a small body, so it's not like the big Guilds or Martin 12 strings you'll play. However, it's got a really shimmery, beautiful sound. Everyone who picks up this guitar comments on how great it sounds, and it's just beautiful. The logo's faded a bit. So yeah, I had to put a lot of effort into this one, and it almost wasn't worth the money. However, I just felt there was something special about this guitar, and I picked it up at Groon's, which is a great guitar shop in Nashville. So I'm very happy with how it turned out, and I use it a lot on my channel as my 12-string guitar. So only a few weeks after the Nashville trip in 2018, it was my birthday, and I went to New York City and celebrated my birthday and wanted a bass because I didn't really have. I had a bass at the time, a Squier Jaguar bass, and I wanted a real, solid bass, and this is a real vintage one. It's a 1978 Fender Precision that I got at Rivington Guitars in New York City, and it's heavy but not too heavy. It's got kind of a polyurethane finish, I believe. It's very glossy, but it plays great. It sounds amazing. It has replacement pickups in it. It's got 62 reissue Fender Precision bass pickups in it. And it did come with the chrome cover, which I still have. Recently, I replaced the pickguard on it to be a tortoise pickguard, which is a nod to my favorite bass players, John Deacon and Klaus Vormann. I also happen to love Paul McCartney and John Entwistle as well. But yeah, this is a amazing bass. I have flat wounds on it right now. The pickguard actually originally on it was white, and that was a replacement. So I think it would have come with a black pickguard originally. But the wood grain is just beautiful. The natural finish. And yeah, incredible bass. There's one more guitar in 2018 that I bought at the end of the year. Went to the Philly Guitar Show and was with my friend Peter Siegel, and picked up this 1967 Gretsch Tennessean. And this actually would have been my first vintage electric guitar. I knew that I wanted either a Casino or some sort of Gretsch, probably a 6120. I didn't really know. I just kind of I knew that I wanted a really nice Gretsch, and this kind of was in my price range. And I didn't know much about the Tennesseans at the time, but after buying this, I became obsessed. I went down a rabbit hole with the Byrds and Jerry and the Pacemakers, and of course George Harrison. And it's such an interesting guitar because these pickups are Hylatron single coil pickups. They're not Filtertron humbuckers like the Country Gentleman or the 6120 had. So they're very low output. I actually measured these, and they were something like 2.9 kilo ohms, which is insanely low. My Les Paul is probably like 8 kilo ohms. It's all original though, pretty much. I think it's had a refret, and Doug Proper also did some little binding work on it, but it's actually really good binding, the plastic white part, which on these Gretsches normally you have a lot of issues with the binding because it's plastic and it wears off. What's interesting about this one is it's a 67, so George Harrison's would have been a 63. And in 67, Baldwin acquired Gretsch as a company, but this is a February 67, so it was before Baldwin acquired Gretsch, which was a dark era for Gretsch. So it's one of the last good examples. So it was February 2020, right before COVID. I went to Rudy's Music in New York City, and I knew that I wanted a Gibson SG Special. I've actually wanted one since I was very young because Pete Townsend is a hero of mine from The Who. He used an SG Special on Tommy and Live at Leeds, some of my favorite albums of all time. And so I'd looked at a lot of different SG Specials and came across this one. It's a 1970, and it's in a walnut finish, not quite as cherry as some of the earlier SGs, but in certain lighting it kind of looks a little bit cherry or red. And it is a dream guitar of mine that I always wanted to own, and I finally get to. It's incredible. It's really light. It has P90 pickups in it, which is different from the SG standard like George played. So these are like what are in a casino. They're single coils. Really cool sounding. It has the vibrola whammy bar and a wraparound tailpiece, so no adjustable intonation, but I actually got that modded. The only mod on this guitar really is this wraparound bridge I got compensated. So it's a different compensated bridge that helps with intonation. Looks the same, but it's just slightly different to help with tuning. The only other mod is the tuners. This is what it would have looked like originally, but these are still replacement white button tuners. Possibly had Grovers on it at some point, was a common mod, the metal ones. It being a later Gibson SG model, it has the double, they call it the Batman pick guard, as opposed to just the single one over here in like the early SGs. It has the walnut finish, as I said. It's got a very chunky neck, but at the same time it has the thinner nut width. So in 66 they actually went to a much thinner nut width. And that combination of the chunky neck and the thin nut width is really cool. It also has this volute. I don't know if you can see that, but it's like a little ledge or ridge here that actually protects it from the headstock from breaking, which is common with Gibsons. So that was a feature in 69 or 70. Other than that, it's all original. It's beautiful. It needs a setup to play a little bit better, but it's a dream guitar that I get to own, and I love it. Also in 2020, I picked up this cheap classical guitar on Reverb. It's an Admira, the Spanish company. It's called Admira. Irene is the model, and it's just a nice Spanish made cheap classical guitar that I've used on my channel a bit. Nothing really special about it. It just sounds really nice, and it was affordable, and it's got a really good tone to it. What's funny about it is I was not used to the lack of dot inlays, so I actually got some little stickers and put those on the the back there so I could see what I was doing. Just wasn't used to it. Hopefully one day I'll take them off and I'll be used to it. I just noticed there's a little hole that happened to just notice that literally just now as I picked up the guitar, but it's a cheap one, so I guess it doesn't matter quite as much. But yeah, nothing wrong with this. Really beautiful, affordable. If you want something that's a real Spanish made classical like George's Ramirez flamenco guitar, go on Reverb and check out Admira. So right before my channel kind of took off and I started to actually upload covers in 2021, I acquired this on Reverb as well. It's a 1999 Rickenbacker 36012 V64 model. I always say Rickenbacker, but I'm trying to be good, guys. I'm trying to pronounce it the right way. So it's a really beautiful model like George Harrison's. There's a few little differences because of the V series. So the V series was from the 1980s until about the year 2001-ish, and then they started the C series, the C64 Rickenbacker model 36012. So the difference is in the V series you get more of this green, here we go, green looking inlays, whereas George's was a bit more white. But I kind of like the green. It looks a little bit more faded. The shape of the headstock is just maybe slightly different, maybe a little sharper here on the C and George's. What else? That's about it. I mean, it really looks the same. So the only mods that I did to this were the pickups are now scatter wound. It originally came with the V series, had these hot toaster pickups, which were very warm and really great, but I just wanted something more authentic to the original. So I put in these scatter wound toaster pickups. You can actually hear the shootout that I did early on in my channel. I'll put a link here so you can hear the difference between those pickups. I really like where it's at right now. I tried flat wound strings on this for a long time, and I had some tuning issues, and I have kind of chubby fingers, so trying to get all of the octave and doubled strings in there was kind of difficult. So right now I just have like Ernie Ball or maybe D'Addario, I forget, but they're round wounds, so they're not exactly like what George would have had, but I can play better, and they still sound really good. It's just a beautiful guitar. When I acquired it and got it in the mail, the action was insanely high. Right now it's really good, but it was like an inch off of the fretboard. I think it was from Arizona, so it was not climate controlled. It took a lot of like turning the truss rod screw over and over and over to get it where it's at. But yeah, it's such a great sounding classic, 60s sounding guitar that is used on so much. So really happy with this. Yeah, great guitar. I'm extra excited about this guitar today because I just got it back from the shop. I got a Bigsby put on this. It's a 2021 Epiphone Casino. It's the USA model that they started making around 2020, I believe. A lot of Epiphones are made nowadays in China. So this USA model is made in the Gibson factory. It has Gibson P90 single coil pickups in it. USA made, really nice sounding. The construction is just generally a little bit better than the Chinese counterpart. It's just a really great sounding hollow body, fully hollow. Comes with the knob pointers. All the specs are generally pretty much vintage accurate, except the inlays, the trapezoid inlays, go the other way around. On a normal Casino, you'll see the difference. And I guess the reason they did this is just they said to make some sort of difference in this model, make it unique. It doesn't bother me too much, but I know some people who love Casinos, they can't really see it any other way, and it's a little distracting. Anyway, the mods that I did to this are really new. Up until today, it was totally stock. So what I did was my guitar tech, Will Van Cise, made this logo a little bit faded yellow. It was totally white before, so now it looks kind of like an aged vintage headstock logo. He also put on a new bridge with nylon, I don't know if you can see that, nylon saddles, as opposed to just metal chrome saddles, so this is more vintage accurate now. And it originally came with a trapeze tailpiece like John Lennon's, and this one now has a Bigsby. Put the B7 Bigsby on it, and it sounds really great. It stays in tune, no issues. This model is interesting too because of the larger headstock, which would have run from 1961 to about 64, I believe. So Paul McCartney's model had this larger headstock. John and George's would have had the thinner headstock with the E logo on the cover there. And it's a great guitar. The neck is nice, round C profile. It's very comfortable to play. It's very light, although now with the Bigsby it's slightly heavier. But I'm really in love with it, especially now. It's all to spec of what I like. It's got a beautiful back. And yeah, the finish is royal tan. So most of the Casinos you see are probably a darker vintage sunburst, more brown. This is kind of a more honey looking finish, which was a real finish in the 60s. You can see certain examples had this more kind of orangey sunburst look, and I really like it. The reason I chose it, there was two models to choose from for the USA models. It was this one with the chrome P90 covers and the royal tan finish, or the vintage brown sunburst one with black P90 covers, and I just really wanted the chrome P90 covers. It's actually hard these days to find P90s that come with the chrome. They mostly come with the black plastic, so I have no regrets. It's a beautiful guitar, and I will definitely be making a lot of more covers with it. It's probably the most used on my channel, and I never even really wanted a casino. I just kind of got it as my channel was taking off, and it's on so much Beatles stuff, so comes in handy. So I'm going to go back in time just a little bit, because in 2015, 4 years after I got my Martin guitar, I got my first Stratocaster, my third electric guitar, which I eventually sold. If you go back to the 2022 video that I did showing my guitars, you can see my original Strat. It was a 2012 American AVR-I, which is American Vintage Reissue Stratocaster, a Sonic Blue Stratocaster, which was a 59 model. When I got it in the mail, it wasn't exactly what I wanted. I did order a Sonic Blue Strat, and when I opened it, it was not blue. At least on the front it wasn't. On the back it was Sonic Blue. On the front it was green, which is really bizarre. And the reason for that is the nitro finish that is on the original Fenders, the vintage and these reissues. The nitro lacquer will yellow if you expose it to light. So what happened is, the blue finish yellowed. Blue and yellow equals green. This does happen to vintage guitars that age, that are maybe exposed to light, or you leave it in front of a window, which is probably what happened to mine, because the back was still blue, meaning that the front, for a long time, there was some sort of light pouring in, maybe from a window, and it was in the guitar store. So when I received it, I was a little disappointed, because I always wanted a Sonic Blue Strat like the Beatles had, the Rubber Soul Help Strat, which is one of my favorite guitars that the Beatles played. I was a little disappointed, and I thought, well, okay, I could either trade this guitar back in, or, well, I'm excited to own a Strat. Let's see what I can do with it. Maybe I can just mod it and make it cool, which is what I did. I put a maple neck on it, 57 reissue maple neck, which you can see in that video. And I changed the pick guard. I made it more like a 50s Strat, which kind of made it look like a surf green 50s Strat, which is pretty cool. I really like that look. And I love the guitar. It played great. The pickups were amazing. The neck felt great. I did a lot of covers with it, which you can see. But it was always in the back of my mind not the guitar that I wanted. So in 2022, I eventually sold this guitar in hopes of getting a real Sonic Blue, which I did. It was in the spring, so it was about 2 years ago exactly. I got this custom shop, 63 Journeyman Fender Relict reissue. So I got my real Sonic Blue, and this is just so beautiful. You can see the Fender custom shop logo there, and you can also see it's quite relict. At least the back of the neck especially is. Here it's glossy, and then it becomes faded, so it's very easy to play on the back of the neck. So I was very happy with this. I did a few mods just to make it look even more the way I wanted it to, just because I really, really wanted this. It was another kind of dream guitar that I wanted. The pickguard I changed to a more mint green. It was a bit too green and kind of yellowed and faded, as well as these pickup and knob covers were kind of very yellow, kind of tobacco-y looking, which I didn't really like, so I just made it more kind of white and more what the Beatles would have, theirs would have looked like. The pickups actually I changed as well. It came with Fat 60s pickups, which are a bit hotter, and so I put in the pure vintage 59 reissue Fender pickups, which are actually what were in my original Strat. They're not the exact same pickups that I had in it, but the same type. And that's about it. I like it. It's a bit heavier than my other one, but I'm very happy. I finally got my dream Strat. And yeah. Dreams really do come true. So later in 2022, I got another guitar. It's a Squier Classic Vibe Bass 6. It's a 6-string bass. A lot of people are confused by that. It's tuned the exact same as a 6-string guitar, E, A, D, G, B, E. However, it's an octave lower. So the first 4 strings of this are exactly like a bass, and then you get the extra G, B, E. The extra 2 B and E high strings. So it's really cool. It's very affordable. I put flat wound labella strings on it. Even though it's a Squier, it really looks amazing, and it plays amazing too. It just needed a setup. Didn't really need much. This is all stock, same pickups that it came with. Just did, a good setup on it. It's got a really beefy neck. I don't really love the neck on it, to be honest. It's a little bit too chunky to play for this kind of thing. Other than that, I really don't have complaints. I mean, Squier really knocked it out of the park. Maybe my only other complaint is it's a stripe skunk on the back, which it wouldn't have come with. It also doesn't come with the mute, that function that the Beatles ones would have come with. But other than that, that doesn't bother me because it looks nearly the same and it plays great. And for a Squier, it's just exceptional. So at the end of 2022, maybe late November, early December, I can't remember, my guitar tech Will called me up and said that he had a Resonator from the 1970s that wasn't too expensive if I wanted to buy it from him. I think he had got it from an estate sale, and it was one of those things where, it's kind of like garbagey, where you could maybe set it up and make it good, or otherwise I'm just going to sell it on Reverb for a few $100 or maybe even throw away. And I didn't really know if I even really wanted a Resonator, but I came and played it, and it was really cool. And there were some things that I used for slide that it would have been super helpful with. So I bought it from him. It wasn't too expensive. Dorado is a Japanese manufacturer. I think it was in the Gretsch factory in Japan. So it's a mid-1970s. It's got the black back of the headstock. Little sting kind of thing right there. And yeah, I use it for slide. Although I learned a few weeks after getting this from a commenter and friend, Harrison, HJ Vids, that John Lennon used one of these on plastic Ono band. Not this exact model, but a Resonator with a pickup in it. So I originally did a crippled inside cover. So this came with no pickup or knobs. You can see it like that in crippled inside. And then I realized that, I can get the well, or some of those other electric sounds using a Resonator with a pickup. So I asked Will, can you put a pickup in this? And he said, let me see if it works. I don't know. He had some trouble because that pickup ring around it, this cover, it didn't quite work. And he had to make some adjustments and cut it up a little bit in order for it to fit. This is a Taisco 1970s or 80s Japanese single coil pickup. And it sounds really cool. You can hear it in my well cover that I did with this. Added the knobs. And so he affectionately calls it the Oh No Bro, because Resonators are also called Dobros. So Oh No is O-N-O. It could be Yoko Ono, or it could be like, oh no, the pickup doesn't exactly fit. But it's really cool. I love this guitar. I'm glad I went through with it. So I keep it in open E for slide. Resonators, as you know, the steel part here on the body helps it resonate. This is called the biscuit, the little circular part here. And but for the John Lennon stuff, just play it in standard tuning with no slide. So the action I keep kind of low. That way I can either play it with slide or just normal picking. And it sounds great. I'm definitely going to do some more George Harrison stuff on it because like Sumi Suyu Blues was open E tuning on a Resonator. In the early spring of 2023, I got this guitar, It looks like a J200 Gibson, and it's supposed to be. It's actually an Ibanez Japanese 70s model, but it's supposed to be like a Gibson J200, which is the guitar that George Harrison bought during the White Album in New York City at Manny's, actually. And, a lot of people, Jimmy Page, Bruce Springsteen, Everly Brothers, Elvis, they all used these big jumbo Gibson J200 type guitars. And I love the way that Ibanez even did this, the pickguard. It's beautiful. It's not even exactly the way that the Gibson one is, but it's really cool. So this was very affordable on Reverb. I got it. And, it doesn't have the exact same tuners as a J200. There's some differences, like the body is slightly bigger. I think like a quarter of an inch more depth in the body. So it's really big, but it's got a huge sound, which is great. It's also the original J200s had maple back and sides, which was very bright. Not the very original ones, but the ones that we know, because some of them had like rosewood back and sides, I think. But this doesn't. It actually has mahogany back and sides, which is like a normal acoustic guitar like my J-45 or Martin with a spruce top. So it's a little bit different sounding in terms of the tone wood. But in terms of the body and the way it sounds, it's pretty much a J200. The inlays are kind of similar too. It became one of my favorite guitars to play because it just has that sound. It's beautiful and big sounding, and I'm really in love with it. George's would have had also an adjustable bridge with the ABR1 tuning saddles here. Mine can't really do that, but they say that kind of kills the tone anyway, so I'm just going to keep it like this. I'm really happy with it. This is called the Mustache Bridge, so it's really cool. Yeah, nothing much else to say other than it was so cheap and it was like worth every penny. It's such a great guitar. Should be worth honestly more. So it's actually called, I'm sorry, the model is the Jamboree. I don't know if you can see that, but it's not called the J200. It's called the Ibanez Jamboree 698, also known as a Concorde. For some reason, mine's called the Jamboree, not the Concorde, but they're all kind of the same model. So this is a really special piece that is my most recent, acquisition for my collection. It's a 1966 Gibson J-160e, like the Beatles played, and a cool cherry sunburst, which is all original. It's actually all original except really for the tuners, which are vintage, real Kluson tuners. They're not reproductions. At one point they had Grovers on it. Wanted to thank Peter Siegel for helping me with this. And as you know, they have P90 pickups. So the same pickups that are in my SG or Casino, they just have a different cover, but those pull pieces, it's all the same construction, but it sounds very different because it's on an acoustic guitar, which is what makes this such a unique sound. Those early Beatles sounds of Please Please Me into a Vox amp, it's just very unique. The cherry sunburst is really cool. So the Beatles ones obviously had a bit more of a darker brown sunburst like this. At some point in the 60s, it turned to cherry sunburst, which I think is really cool and beautiful on this guitar. A lot of people are also asking, why do you need a J-45 and a J-160? I don't need both. However, they are more different than I thought. I did a shootout you can check out of the two of them. They're very similar in some ways. They have mahogany back and sides. The differences, though, are the top. This is a more laminate top as opposed to the spruce on the J-45. So it's a bit more like plywood, a little cheaper. And that's partially because they wanted to kill some of that feedback on with the pickup when you plug it in. The spruce just really makes it resonate a little too much where it was feeding back. So that's kind of why they did that. Also, the neck and body meet at the 15th fret here, and I think on the J-45 it's the 14th fret. Is that right? Just about. Also, obviously, the inlays are different. The dot inlays on the J-45 and the block inlays are on the J-160. So, I mean, it's just so beautiful. There's the adjustable saddle, the original ceramic saddle. It's really similar to John Lennon's and George Harrison's. It has the double ring on it, like John's later 64 J-160. George's would have had just the one ring. It has a super thin neck. It's like an SG, like slim tapered 60s neck. So it's super thin. Not everyone's going to love that, but has a thin nut width as well. Don't think there's much else to say. It's just really beautiful, very clean. It sounds amazing. I'm doing a lot of covers with it and very happy.